Good morning, my name is Richard Sprague and I'm a beekeeper in Ashland County, and I'm going to take this mask off so hopefully you can hear me a little bit clearer, and there's no one else close around. And I've been keeping bees since I first had bees when I was 12 or 13 years old. My father had bees. He started when he was about 12 or 13. His father didn't have bees, but so I'm kind of a second generation at it. And a little bit about myself. And as time went on, we kept the bees, but my interests changed focus. And at that time, I liked the bees, but I didn't see that being a permanent source of income for a career. And so we kept the bees on the farm. And then as my dad retired in the early 90s from farming, he got more hives and split the ones he had, and he got up to about 40. And he had about 40 hives split between 20 at his farm and 20 at my farm. And as time went on, he got older. He's 97 now, he's in a nursing home. Then as he got older, he was having more difficulty taking care of all the bees. So I purchased the bees back that he had on my farm. And then 3 or 4 years later, he got so he couldn't take care of the ones at his place real good. And he was in his 80s then, probably getting towards his mid 80s. And well, I guess early 80s. But anyway, and so I purchased those too, and I kept bees on his place and on my farm. And then some years ago, I started expanding, probably over 10 years ago, to other apiaries. And currently I have 16, 18 apiaries, and I have bees in over 12 locations in Ashland County. I have 3 or 4 south of Ashland here, and the other 7 or 8, 9 up north of Ashland. I also have bees just that touch the line in Richland County and over by West Salem. And I still have bees on a neighbor. We sold my dad's place some years ago, almost 10 years ago now. And I have bees there yet, more for a novelty and just see what's going on in the neighborhood than anything. So I have around 50 hives of bees, and the bees stay in the same place, unlike most bees in the United States that are moved migratory, and their main purpose is for pollination. The main purpose of my bees predominantly is to produce honey. And they do help pollinate crops, and bees will fly up to a couple miles from their hive to search for nectar. And they won't go any further than they have to usually. So, you know, a lot of times, sometimes when there's a nectar dart, they will go 2 miles, a lot of times they don't. But so the main 4 types of honey that I produce are spring, summer, wildflower, which has blossoms from probably at least 20 things. It has wild strawberry blossoms, wildflowers in the forest. It has some clover and alfalfa in it. It also has a little bit of locust honey. Tulip poplar, it has quite a bit, because there's quite a bit of woods around where I have trees, or where I have apiaries. And there is some basswood, which I try and separate as much as I can. The basswood flow only comes it's from the basswood or linden tree, and it only blooms about every 2 to 4 years. And it bloomed real well in 19, and it was only 2 years after the previous bloom. But I got a lot of basswood honey that year, and I didn't get any in 20, which is what I anticipated. I don't really expect it. It seems to average every 3 years. I don't really expect it to bloom this year. I may be surprised because it's 2 years now, and occasionally nature will surprise you. Last year we had snow on May 9th. On a Saturday, I have a picture of it on my camera or my phone because I was kind of unique and I wanted to save that. How often you have the ground covered with snow in May. But anyway, and then buckwheat honey is the basswood blooms the end of May into the middle of July. It varies every year, just like spring varies every year, and for the same reason, the weather. And then I do move bees about 60 miles for buckwheat hunting from where I live. And they're there about a month while the buckwheat blooms, and then I put them on a trailer, move the trailer there, and I go see them a couple times while they're there and see how they're doing. And then after the buckwheat is done blooming, I bring them back home. The fourth kind of honey that I produce is late summer, fall goldenrod. I have a lot of goldenrod around quite a few of my apiaries, and also alfalfa honey is somewhat this color too. And a lot of times in the fall, besides goldenrod, and another big crop is aster, the farmers will let their alfalfa crop go an extra month, 3, 4, or 5 weeks between harvests, so that it stores up nutrients in the root system for over winter for the next year. And so there's also some clover and some alfalfa in there. There's also some coneflowers, and wing stem is a flower that grows in a wildflower. You'll see that bloom in August into September, and that's also in here along with Jerusalem artichoke. And there's some other wildflowers that bloom at that time. And in addition to selling honey, I sell some combed honey, which I have some examples of here. And I do sell honey sticks at events or at stores, and I will sell them at home too. The honey sticks I do not produce myself, and they are not my own honey. They have Ohio honey in them. I have a friend that he gathers together. He sells honey sticks, and so he sends pallets of honey to be processed into honey sticks, and they can do like 50,000 sticks in an hour, you know. And so it's just for economies of scale, that's how it's done. You can make your own honey sticks. It's a very arduous and slow process unless you want to spend a fortune on a large machine, so I don't do that. And I also have creamed honey, which I have creamed is a little bit of a misnomer. The reason it's called cream honey is because of the color. It looks creamy. And what that really is you take, that's all very minute crystals. And what you do is you take as seed, one that's already set up, you put your honey that you're gonna make sure there's no crystals in it already so it doesn't crystallize into one large block. And you take that at room temperature and you mix it for 15-20 minutes. It'll start to crystallize on its own by whipping it. And then you add 1 jar of that and do it for another 10-15 minutes. And then add cinnamon or maybe peanut butter. I've seen someone I know put chocolate in it, so it's chocolate honey. And the advantage of cream honey is that it's spreadable. You put it in the refrigerator, which you don't want to do with honey because it'll all crystallize into one big glob if you do that, which you just warm it and it remelts. But anyway, you take the cream honey after you've whipped it and added the crystals from one that's already as seed. You put it in the refrigerator for 2 or 3 weeks, and sometime between 2 and 3 weeks, you can take it up to 2 weeks, even in the refrigerator, and you turn it and it'll pour. And all of a sudden you go in there a few days later and you turn it and nothing happens. Well, then you know it's set up. You give it another few days. And then you can sell it at room temperature. The advantage of it is more the consistency of peanut butter. And if you've tried honey on toast very often, the liquid honey, you end up with some on your shirt if you're not careful. So that's one of the advantages of it. The other advantage is it's handy for if you're going to add any additional flavoring in that. And this is a large chunk that's being processed of beeswax, and I need to run it through again so it gets even lighter in color. And this is what we call some burr comb, and there happened to be an empty space in a hive. I didn't have enough frames, or I was feeding them and I had an empty box on top. And the bees needed more room, so they made their own wax. And you can see around the edge where it just had honey, or they just made it, it's real light. And this here in the middle, it's darker, it had brood in it. And the more times it has brood in it, the darker it gets. And the comb will actually get very dark, almost black. And I have solar wax melters. When you melt it, there's this kind of like an afterbirth or whatever left in the comb after the bees. I'm not sure that's the right word for it, and so that stays, and you melt the wax out, and the wax will turn back like this. Like I said, if I run this through cheesecloth one more time, it'll be very light colored. I do sell honey at Ashland Roots here in town. I sell at the farmers market at the Methodist Church right down the road here in the summer, and I sell at the Ashland County Fair. I am in the process of adding some more sites in Ashland County. I sell at the IGA in West Salem. I sell at Miller's in Lodi, and I see that I may try and get into Miller's here in town. I also sell out of my home. I live in Sullivan, Ohio, and like I said, I have bees about a dozen places in Ashland County, in at least 7 townships. At least 7 townships. They may go into more townships than that because they'll go a couple miles. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about my products and the honeybees. So you have a good day.